In the pantheon of modern animated protagonists, few carry a burden as heavy or as divinely ordained as Steven Universe. Over the course of Rebecca Sugar's critically acclaimed series, a persistent and unavoidable reading of the character emerged among fans. Steven is a messianic figure, and more specifically, a direct analog to Jesus Christ. The Reddit declaration, "Steven is Jesus and I'm tired of pretending he isn't," encapsulates a sentiment that moves beyond mere meme culture into the realm of legitimate textual analysis. While the narrative of Steven Universe, 2013 to 2019, constructs Steven as a sci-fi savior tasked with healing a broken galaxy, the sequel epilogue series Steven Universe Future, 2019 to 2020, weaponizes this very allegory to critique the psychological cost of forced divinity. The arc of Steven Universe is not merely a retelling of the gospel. It is a deliberate, painful dismantling of what it means for a child to be God. The foundation of the allegory lies in the unique and sacrificial nature of Steven's conception. In Christian theology, Jesus is the Word made flesh, a divine essence that empties itself to inhabit a human form through the Virgin Mary. In Steven Universe, the process is rendered in the language of hard light and organic biology. Steven's mother, Rose Quartz, secretly the divine tyrant Pink Diamond, did not give birth in the traditional sense. She ceased to exist so that her gemstone could become one half of Steven's being. As Greg Universe explains in the episode Lion 3 Straight to Video, she gave up her physical form to bring Steven into the world. This is a sci-fi variation of the kenosis, the relinquishing of divine power to enter the human condition. Steven is, quite literally, the incarnation of a diamond, a being worshipped as a god by gems across the universe, trapped in the fragile, finite body of a human boy. He is both fully gem and fully human, a duality that mirrors the theological mystery of the hypostatic union. This origin story immediately casts Steven in the role of the redeemer of original sin. The entire conflict of the series stems from the fall of Rose Quartz / Pink Diamond. Her rebellion and subsequent abandonment of her colony left a wake of trauma, corruption, and intergalactic grief. The corrupted gems, the cluster experiments, the suicidal despair of Spinel, and the fascist perfectionism of White Diamond are all direct consequences of Rose's actions. Steven, despite having no memory or personal culpability for these events, is the one who must pay the debt. In a poignant scene from Storm in the Room, Steven confronts a simulation of his mother in her room and laments, "I'm not you, but everyone keeps treating me like I am." This is the burden of the scapegoat. He is the Lamb of Beach City, taking upon himself the sins of the mother and the fury of those she wronged. The ability to heal, first his spit, then his tears, and finally his essence, functions as a sacrament of reconciliation. Where the diamond's power corrupts and controls, Steven's power restores and liberates, turning monsters back into citizens and enemies into allies. The most overt narrative parallel, however, is the death and resurrection sequence in the climax of the original series, Change Your Mind. When White Diamond, the false god of the gem hierarchy, removes Steven's gemstone to kill the organic half that she deems a flaw, she performs a crucifixion of identity. Steven's human body turns gray, lifeless, a dead weight on the floor. Yet the gem half reforms not as Pink Diamond or Rose Quartz, but as Steven. In a psychedelic inner journey, the two halves of his self, the divine light and the human flesh, reunite in a transcendent embrace. When he returns, he does so with a new form and a glowing aura, his voice harmonizing with his own inner self. She's gone. This is the harrowing of hell and the resurrection rolled into one. He descends into the white void of ego death and returns with a gospel of forgiveness rather than vengeance. His resurrection is the catalyst for the salvation of the diamonds. They are not shattered, but converted. White Diamond, the ultimate villain, is reduced to a blushing, confused child in the face of Steven's compassionate radiance. It is a peace that passes all understanding, and it is entirely dependent on Steven's willingness to die and forgive. If the original series was the Gospel of Stephen, then Steven Universe Future is the Book of Lamentations, a harrowing exploration of what happens to the psyche of a savior after the apocalypse is averted. The show's coda brilliantly subverts the chosen one trope by diagnosing Stephen with severe post-traumatic stress disorder. The powers that once made him divine now manifest as uncontrollable, monstrous rage, turning him bright pink and causing him to shatter the ground with a scream. The very title of the finale, The Future, becomes ironic because Stephen cannot envision a future for himself outside of fixing everyone else's problems. He has been so thoroughly defined by his role as the suffering servant that he has no sense of self. The essayist's claim, "I'm tired of pretending he isn't," takes on a tragic second layer in this context. Stephen is tired of pretending he isn't Jesus too, not because he wants the glory. He's tired because the role is destroying him. In one of the series' most devastating lines, Stephen confesses to the gems, "I'm a fraud, I'm a monster." This is the psychological endpoint of forced messianism. When a child is expected to mediate wars, heal generational trauma, and provide unconditional love to his mother's abusers, the result is not sainthood, it is self-annihilation. The narrative of Future explicitly positions Stephen's divine upbringing as a form of neglect and parentification. The happy ending of Change Your Mind is reframed as the moment the world placed a crown of thorns on a 16-year-old's head and then walked away satisfied. Stephen's final desperate act, corrupting himself into the very kind of monster he used to heal, is a cry for help so loud it literally warps his flesh. He cannot be the perfect, forgiving Christ anymore. He needs to be seen as a frightened, angry boy. In conclusion, the reading of Steven Universe as a Christ figure is not a stretch or fan projection. It is the deliberate, structural core of the show's mythology. From his virgin birth via maternal sacrifice to his resurrection and gospel of radical empathy, Stephen embodies the narrative beats of the messianic archetype with startling fidelity. However, the genius of Rebecca Sugar's work lies in its refusal to let the allegory rest as a simple power fantasy. Steven Universe Future serves as a necessary corrective, a long overdue therapy session for the genre of the child savior. It argues that the cross is too heavy for any one person to bear, especially a child. By allowing Stephen to finally leave Beach City, to end his ministry, and simply be a person, the show offers a radical theological proposition. Perhaps the truest form of salvation is not being God, but being allowed to be fully human. The meme is right. Stephen is Jesus, and the show's greatest achievement is revealing just how unfair and unsustainable that truly is.